compelling track, a track that is so revered in the Portuguese motorsport scene, and it is our joy to bring you the Supercars Endurance Series qualifying session. We don't usually have qualifying sessions broadcast, but just the 2 races this weekend, so we're bringing you qualifying as an addition. We're scoring points this weekend in the Campeonato de Velocidade Portugal, so this is only for the Portuguese point scorers. So a lot of the Spanish-based teams who do the main Iberian Supercars season are not with us this weekend, but it is still a very strong contingent of competitors out on the circuit. Now, as we wind up here to go racing, it's important that we acknowledge news that I'm sure a lot of you have seen, a lot of you have read in the last few days. Earlier in the week, the Iberian Supercars paddock unfortunately lost one of its most beloved competitors and personalities in Rui Marita, the Monteros Competición Porsche driver in the Cup division, the serial championship winner in the Cup division. Just an absolutely lovely person, fearless driver as well, always so competitive and fun to watch. Unfortunately, lost his life several weeks following a road incident, and we send all of our well wishes and thoughts to his family, his friends, and of course a lot of his friends here in this paddock, and we'll be celebrating his memory with a minute's silence before race 1, and of course with hours of racing noise as he would have wanted across this weekend. So as the drivers head out there now on their sighting laps before getting into the qualifying flying laps, we just want to take a moment to remember Rui Marita, a brilliant driver, a multiple-time champion, and someone who's going to leave a big hole, an indelible mark on this page. Into the first flying laps then for the qualifying session here in the Campeonato de Portugal Velocidade. And there is a familiar driver, Andre Fernandez, we were just looking at in his green Porsche 997 Cup car, the driver who has been very busy this year, started his season in Iberia in the Geddes Racing GT Winter Series in a GT3 Porsche 991.2 car, so a full-fat GT3 machine. Of course, that series supported in terms of organisation by Race Ready, who bring us the Supercars Endurance, the Iberian Supercars. And he's gone on to race in GT Open. He's been a busy boy this year as Andre Fernandez, and great to see him with us for the first time this season in Iberian Supercars. Now we have an interesting mix on the grid since it is only the Portuguese series. There are no split grids this time, so the GTCs, the TCs and the GT4s all on the grid together, and Andre Fernandez has had a moment. Now, at least from this view, the car looks undamaged, so did he just outbrake himself or did he have a drama? I think we had the sound, unfortunately, for that interview, but hearing down there in the paddock. Hopefully you guys heard that one, but it certainly didn't come through to me. We have another drama up at the top of the hill, and that's the number 2 car, the Simoes and Pedro Alves number 2 car, the Club Sport Spec Cayman, so not a full fat GT4 car. And that looks like it's gone straight into the barrier. Now, it's worth noting that while the races will be combined, the sessions for qualifying will not be combined. So we're going to see the GTC and TC cars out on circuit now, and then the GT4s will have their own qualifying session. This element of qualifying, though, is going to be delayed. That looks like that was quite a heavy front-on impact for the number 2. That was Pompeo Simoes at the wheel of the Speedy Motorsport car. Looks like it's gone straight into the barriers. The red flag's waving. We only just started to get some flying laps in, and I don't think anyone was fully up to speed yet. Indeed, of course, with Andre Fernandez having his moment out on circuit, there was no shortage of drama. So there were yellow flags out on the circuit. I don't think anybody got what you'd call a clean lap.
Estamos com José Maria Marreiros, piloto que estreia este fim de semana aqui em Vila Real também, ao volante um IG da Veloso Motorsport. José Maria, tem sido um fim de semana positivo para vocês?
Tem sido bastante positivo, primeira vez aqui nunca é fácil. O primeiro treino livre fez o meu teammate, o segundo já fiz eu. Foi um treino de reconhecimento de pista, perceber como é que o carro se comportava aqui, porque é a primeira vez num citadino. E ontem na terceira livre já estávamos no tempo, por isso muito satisfeito com o ritmo.
Agora com esta paragem, de que forma é que esta paragem afeta os pilotos?
Esta paragem pode afetar bastante porque se agora perdemos muito tempo, os pneus já não podem não estar frescos, não estão no pico ideal e para meter a volta mais rápida pode afetar.
Vocês acabaram por não fazer a volta rápida?
Não, nós agora teve red flag, mas ainda vai dar para fazer, ainda temos tempo de pista, acredito. Simplesmente já não está no melhor pico do pneu.
Okay, muito bem, muito obrigado e boa sorte. Obrigado. E de volta ao estúdio.
So, red flags out around the circuit, as we've said, and we now wait to see what comes next. Now, one driver we didn't see come out onto the circuit was Daniel Teixeira. He had, in fact, just come into the pit lane to get started. He is here in his Hyundai Elantra N TCR, of course, a car that's always formidable. It's going to be really interesting to figure out the permutations of him up against the GT4s. Where will he stack up in the overall order when we go racing? The GT4 car's always quick. There is the number 35 machine, Arta Ferreira's Veloso Motorsport entered Ligier JS2R. The Ligiers, I think, will be good around here. Nimble cars and usually very quick. Let's acknowledge a couple of drivers, unfortunately, we won't see, or a couple of outfits that we won't see on the grid here. The 103 BMW, unfortunately, will be a non-starter. That was set to be Claudio Pereira at the wheel of the B-Fast Motorsport BMW. They had a incident in practice yesterday. That car is going no further. The 117 McLaren, I think we have seen that out there, haven't we? The TRS 117. Just check the timing on that. Yes, we have seen Antonio Duarte's McLaren out on circuit. They worked very hard to repair that car after an incident yesterday. The 117 machine, 10-hour working day it was for the mechanics after the crash. Get that car sorted. There was a gearbox issue with the Hyundai Elantra of Daniel Teixeira. So Teixeira had a bit of a drama. And everyone seems to have had that sorted, although, as we said, the 103 with the big crash yesterday not going any further. The Veloso team in conversation. You see that fans on the stands. Since 1931, this has been a revered part of the local motorsport scene. After 1991, racing was paused here at the circuit. But in 2007, the Villarreal Street Circuit returned in a new guise, a shorter configuration. And it has been part of international motorsport, of course, in recent years with the TCR World Tour, and before that, the World Touring Car Championship in its final days. And has become a really well-loved stop on that calendar.
Estamos com Gabriel Caçoio, que neste momento está na primeira posição da qualificação. Gabriel, foi uma boa forma de começar a qualificação, no entanto, esta paragem é sempre desmotivante.
Sim, foi uma boa maneira de começar. A pista está muito complicada, tem ali duas partes com óleo na pista, então não deu para puxar o máximo do carro. É sempre necessário ter algum cuidado, porque esta pista, pronto, pequenos erros não perdoam. Mas sim, estou satisfeito, sei que tenho mais para dar e agora, se vir que tenho condições para fazer melhor, vou tentar.
Você acha então que é possível arriscar um bocadinho mais?
Sim. A pista está com aderência. O único problema com que eu estou neste momento é a confiança a passar naquelas zonas onde tem óleo na pista, mas se vir que a pista já está com a aderência que é preciso, vou arriscar mais.
Muito bem, muito obrigado, boa sorte e de volta ao estúdio.
So as we see the paddock down here in the streets. And a lot of these drivers so excited to add their name to Quite the lineage of drivers that have competed here. Among the winners, Sterling Moss in the 50s, David Piper in the late 60s. And then, of course, in the modern era with the World Touring Cars, the likes of Ivan Muller and Rob Huff and Yano Lacher, all names that have graced the Villarreal street circuit. And it really is the highlight for a great many drivers of the season to be able to take in this wonderful venue. Of course, the marshals here, very experienced. They'll be working to try and get the green flag out again as soon as possible. But for now, Antonio Duarte has decided he doesn't want to sit in the cockpit of his McLaren 570S. It's like some lively discussions going on. You can see some of the battle scars on the front of that car from yesterday's incident. Great to see the TRS McLarens, the other, this car being driven by Will Hunt, the number 47. Will Hunt, who has a good amount of touring car, or rather, sorry, a good amount of sports car experience in radical competition. Often a driver coach, this time getting to drive alongside Stephanie Herbaker. And certainly, I think for the coaches, this is one of the venues where they really have to work quite hard, because I think it takes the average amateur driver a bit of encouragement to push hard at this facility. No quarter given by those barriers lining either side of the track. And so
Estamos com o Vítor
teaching...
Costa, que neste momento está no quarto posto da classificação. Vítor, foi um bom início, no entanto esta paragem acaba por ter sempre um bocadinho uma paragem que quebra o ritmo.
Sim, sem dúvida. Esta paragem não ajuda muito aqui na ansiedade que existe em fazer o melhor tempo possível. De qualquer maneira, estamos só no início também. É um prazer correr aqui em Vila Real. É um circuito que eu já conheço há 2 anos e vou dar o meu melhor. Vou tentar fazer o melhor tempo possível, para partir também mais à frente possível. É esse o objetivo.
E, para o resto das corridas, quais são os objetivos para este fim de semana?
Os objetivos é que, primeiro, acima de tudo, superar os tempos que eu fiz o ano passado, ter uma corrida, se possível, sem incidentes, e depois ganhar pódio, se possível, e tentar chegar o mais longe possível.
Muito bem, muito obrigado e boa sorte. E de volta ao estúdio.
So that was Vítor Costa down in the pits. You have to forgive me, I am not able to make the translation for you, but Vítor Costa of Montelos Competiciones. Sadly, with Rui Marita no longer with us, the Monteros team just with Vítor for this weekend, so he'll be looking to do a good result for the team here, lift the spirits of the squad. Speedy Motorsport are, of course, here in droves. As always, they've got 3 cars on the grid. The pair of Porsches, the Club Sport Cayman that we saw in the wall of Simoes and Alves. The bronze class Porsche, Ricardo Costa, Bruno Pires, and then Cesar Mercado and Pedro Salvador in the Supra. The other
Estamos com António
Supra.
Duarte, corre no McLaren 570S da TRS. António, foi fim de semana que começou de uma forma menos positiva, mas apesar disso está aqui para competir na qualificação.
Sim, é verdade, a coisa não começou bem. Ontem sofri um pequeno toque numa curva à esquerda e os reios depois fizeram alguns estragos. A equipa conseguiu recuperar o carro para hoje e agora para mim vai ser, se calhar, o segundo treino livre, porque só pude fazer o primeiro.
Mas ainda assim, a equipa trabalhou de uma forma fabulosa, porque conseguiu colocar o carro direito e ainda tem perspectivas boas para este fim de semana.
Tenho. A pista nos últimos 3 anos tem-me dado bons resultados. Hoje não será tão fácil, mas tentarei o melhor possível.
Muito bem, muito obrigado e boa sorte. E de volta ao estúdio.
Of course, at the front of the field, we will expect the GT4s to be the ones doing battle. However, expect some of the experienced drivers in the GTC division, and indeed Daniel Teixeira in his TC Plus Hyundai Elantra, to be strong. Oh, the want is strong for a visit to this man's barbecue. That looks sensational. I haven't had lunch yet. Guys, let's not. I forgot to have breakfast and I haven't had lunch. So please don't show me too much barbecue meat. Of course, the Villarreal circuit. Somewhere that's not unfamiliar with a little bit of drama and a little bit of barrier contact. So the crews have made it fairly quick, fairly prompt, the recovery of that number 2 car. And that means that fairly soon we should be okay to go back into this qualifying session. The flatbed truck has been deployed, and yeah, as you can see, that was a heavy front-end impact on the number 2. With the angle that car seems to have gone in at, completely front forward, they'll be very lucky not to have bent the actual chassis rails at the front of that car, and if they have done that, that unfortunately would be game over. Getting a look at just how uniquely gorgeous this circuit is. You see there the luscious green fields encased within the circuit, and then the cityscape as well. It's a really special venue, and this is really the zenith, this section here, just running so fast. Incredibly high speeds for a street circuit and some very fast corners to contend with. Of course, this venue based in northern Portugal, where Portimao and Estoril, of course, are very much southerly. And certainly a crown jewel event every year for the Iberian Supercars. I was wondering if the flatbed would bother to take the chicane. Apparently not. Track limits. But you can see the immense elevation change as well. So many blind corners and such a heavy ascent at the start of the lap and a heavy descent at the end of it. It is a circuit that demands a lot of the drivers.
Temos com Joaquim Teixeira, o chefe de equipa da JT 59 Racing Team. Joaquim, foi um dia difícil ontem.
Foi um dia extremamente difícil, começou bem, nos treinos privados nós até estávamos com um ritmo bom, embora com pneus velhos. E depois nos treinos livres não conseguimos fazer, demos uma volta, tivemos um barulho muito esquisito na caixa, o Daniel optou por parar. Fomos verificar, tínhamos um dente no carrete da segunda partida, tivemos de desmontar a caixa, tivemos de tentar arranjar e arranjámos uma caixa nova da marca, que nos cedeu para nós fazermos a prova. E agora montámos em contra-relógio, montámos tudo novo, caixa, montámos travões, só que o Daniel agora voltou a ter azar, que quando ia dar a volta para aquecer os pneus e acamar os motores, voltou a ficar parado devido ao acidente, infelizmente, que um colega nosso teve. Mas pronto, é isto que eu costumo dizer, não é como começa, é como acaba, e nós vamos tentar fazer o melhor possível nos 2 campeonatos que vamos fazer. Não é?
Sim, mas de qualquer das formas, o Daniel não teve nenhum problema técnico. Ficou parado no semáforo.
Não, ficou parado porque, entretanto, quando ele ia entrar, deu a bandeira vermelha e ele teve que aguardar ali. Portanto, ele não conseguiu sequer aquecer pneus nem acamar travões. Nós também, pronto, vamos tentar fazer o melhor no Nacional, que é aquilo que nós nos interessa pontuar, e vamos dar o nosso contributo dentro daquilo que é possível dentro do Mundial.
Okay. Voltando aqui ao Campeonato de Portugal de Velocidade, vocês ontem demonstraram um andamento muito forte. Acha que é possível bater-se pela vitória geral com o GT4?
Não, aqui é muito difícil. O GT4 tem uma evolução muito grande nos últimos 2, 3 anos. Nós o tempo que temos, é assim, eu penso que melhoramos, porque nós tivemos 2.4 com pneus velhos. Portanto, dá para baixar alguma coisa. Agora, lutar por não. Eu ficava contente se nós entrássemos no 5º, 6º lugar da geral.
Muito bem, muito obrigado e boa sorte. E de volta ao estúdio.
So it shouldn't be too long before we can go back to racing speeds here. We didn't really get a representative time on the board before the disruption of this Q1 session for the GTC and TC division. Now, Q1 with the starting drivers of race 1 featured. And of course, it will set the grid for race 1. Q2 will set the grid for race 2. Hello to our marshals. Friendly bunch. But so Q1, I think we're going to have a slightly disrupted picture here in this GTC and TC division at the very least, because I mean, it kind of was the perfectly wrong time for a red flag in a way, because the drivers were just getting up to speed on the session at the time of the red. And then by the time they're back up to speed again, we're going to have, what, 6 minutes of the session left? A lap here runs at over 2 minutes in these cars. The drivers are going to be very hard pressed to find a representative lap time in the short window that they now have. Wonderful conditions here this morning. As the day goes on, the track temps here at Villarreal really shoot up. I think they almost doubled from the first session of the day until about 2 p.m. yesterday. I think it's a bit cooler on this Saturday so far, but we'll wait and see. Now there are still barrier repairs ongoing up at the top of the hill. That's turn 6, the Bukwe bend from that Pompeo Simoes incident. That's right at the end of a very long high-speed section, so understandably absolutely every precaution in place where it comes to barrier protections. Ah, and it looks to me like that's barriers being replaced, isn't it? Yes, some of the barriers have actually been damaged, as we can see there, and they are replacing the concrete barriers. We are in for a fairly lengthy delay here. It is not going to be the work of 5 minutes to get all of that attached.
Estamos com o Michel Fernandes, piloto que regressa sempre a Vila Real. Michel, qual é o encanto de Vila Real para si?
Vila Real para mim é uma corrida, um circuito muito especial, muito complicado, muito técnico. Para mim é comparar como ao Monaco, é só barreiras de um lado, barreiras do outro. Para mim é espetacular.
E também vir aqui ao Campeonato de Portugal de Velocidade é também um momento alto na sua carreira.
Sim, circuito faço alguns e ando mais na montanha, rampas, só que para mim Vila Real tem de vir todos os anos.
E quais são os objetivos para este fim de semana?
Os meus objetivos é não interromper a corrida com acidentes, quero ter o carro ao fim direitinho e divertir-me e não causar acidentes.
Muito bem, muito obrigado e boa sorte. E de volta ao estúdio.
You see there the clock approaching 12 p.m. I've been informed that we're imminently expecting a restart, but I'm not convinced that that's in reality, given that barrier damage we saw a couple of minutes ago, assuming those were live pictures from the drone. At turn 6, I do not imagine that we're going to be back to green anytime soon. We've lost the camera down there at turn 6 as well, because apparently the impact for Simoes was such that it has damaged the scaffold structure that the cameraman and camera stand upon. And while I understand the cameraman's okay, the scaffold is not. So we've lost that camera for now. Must have been a very heavy impact. And hopefully Simoes is okay. We look down at the Villarreal cityscape.
Estamos com o Adam Fawcett, piloto que corre no Porsche 911 da Art of Speed. Adam, it's always boring to wait for the restart.
Yes, we are bored and hot and excited to get going.
So, and the goals for this qualifying?
I'm sorry?
The goals for this qualifying?
Well, I would like to be fastest in my class like everyone.
And do you think that's possible?
It is possible, 100%.
Okay, thank you and good luck.
Thank you.
Volta ao estúdio.
If you are wondering about the nature of that building that we've been seeing a lot of, the building that looks almost like a ramp, apparently that's a shopping centre by the looks of it, and a cinema, among other things. I'm unfortunately not on site for this event, but boy, would I love to take in this venue one of these days. Villarreal Street Circuit, certainly one on the bucket list. There's really quite sensational how this facility carves through the landscape. And some really eye-widening speeds that we achieve on these streets. Hopefully Andre Fernandez just had a bit of a braking error and hadn't had a problem with his car. Of course, we saw him in the escape road shortly before the red flag in a separate incident. And we now again visit with the barrier repair situation. Looks like the concrete is now back in place, but they've then got to tether. In fact, no, not all of the concrete is back in place. You can see there that second layer of concrete that is still on its side. So they still need to move all of that, and that's going to take a few of the burlier marshals to pick that back up. And then, of course, they need to get the tyres back into position as well. Not the work of 5 minutes, and a few feats of strength are required, I feel, from our safety crews here. I mean, guys, listen, as long as this is done before before nightfall, I'm happy. As some of you may be aware, there's a football game that the English are interested in later on in the day. With my commiserations to Portugal on their elimination. Don't worry, I get the feeling Erling Haaland is going to do some things to us this evening. Very unlike me to comment or know anything about football, but World Cup fever has taken me by the throat this year. Just getting a bulletin through that Pompeo Simoes has been to the medical centre, but he is A-OK. So good to hear. Of course, always a precaution, especially after such heavy impact, to make sure that everything is all right. And the ever-optimistic race control saying 12:10 restart at the moment. Again, this, to me, doesn't look like 10 minutes away, but we'll see. They have faith in their corner workers, and I've no reason to disbelieve it on paper, having seen them deal with, well, in some cases, quite infamous incidents. That's a big stack up on the way down to, or on the way up the hill from the start-finish line. Went a little bit viral, the big track blockage. And certainly the marshals here know their stuff and know how to weather those storms. Wouldn't it be wonderful to have a balcony that overlooks this circuit? I think that's one of the goals, isn't it, for petrol heads, is to have a home that overlooks either a street track or is nearby a permanent venue. For me, it's the Nürburgring. I would love to live in Adenau and just walk up to Exmuller and watch the NLS races on a Saturday and maybe watch some people push the limits and beyond in the tourist and Fahrten days during the week.
Estamos com Stefania Obeka, uma piloto que corre num dos McLaren 570S da TRS. Obeka, it's your debut year of Eurial, so how is it going?
It's really interesting to see how it's going. It's been hard yesterday. The first sessions were a lot about building confidence, but the last sessions things started to come together. I think it's about staying out of trouble and finishing the race more than anything. There's a first time for everything, and this is my first time here. So it's about taking in everything that's going on and learning step by step to hopefully come back again next time and do even better.
And for this weekend, what your goals? Is just learning the track? Do you think you can go to a good position in the end?
Yeah, the first thing is about learning track, first time on street circuit, only third race in GT as well, with not much testing. So yeah, it's more about learning the track, and then hopefully we're 4 cars in class, so hopefully we can try and get a podium.
Okay. And this is a different circuit of what you are used to, street circuit. What's your views about it?
The biggest part is getting the confidence to like drive close to the walls and use all the track. It's not like going closer to a curb or to the white line. It's getting closer to a wall. So it's mostly about that, so that you can carry the speed.
Okay, thank you very much, and good luck for the whole weekend. And back to volta ao estúdio.
Well, I've been talking for a couple of minutes, but not realising that my microphone was muted. We did hear a couple of minutes ago from Stephanie Hebeke, the Lebanese-born, Dubai-raised driver who now is based in the UK.
Estamos com José Santos, aqui o responsável do Pitlane. José, pode explicar um bocadinho quais são as suas funções aqui?
Ora, bom dia. As minhas funções, primeiro, é manter a segurança, seja dos pilotos, seja dos mecânicos, quem tiver a assistir à prova. Segundo, é dar instruções para que tudo desenvolva nos trâmites. Há certas regras que temos que tentar cumprir e fazer que sejam cumpridas. Reclamações é comigo que vêm ter, que sou eu que estou em direto com a direção de corrida e com o Colégio de Comissários. Basicamente é isso que se passa aqui no fim de semana, ver se os mecânicos estão sempre bem equipados, os pilotos, os mecânicos se não andam de chinelos, se não há crianças, que basicamente nestes circuitos citadinos há muita criança, há chinelos, então é mato. É uma questão de segurança, basicamente é o nosso trabalho aqui no pit lane.
E aqui em Vila Real, dá mais trabalho que nos outros circuitos?
Em Vila Real dá mais trabalho porque é um circuito, é umas boxes mais estreitas, tudo muito apertado. Temos que pôr o recio na betesga, como se chama dizer, mas com calma tudo se consegue fazer e as equipas ajudam-nos e tentamos que tudo corra bem.
Muito bem, muito obrigado.
Our thanks, of course, to our broadcast crew for persisting through this delay, and particularly to Jorge down there in the pits, who's been diligently finding some folk to converse with. Of course, only half the grid is really down there at the moment because they get released from a external paddock to head to the pits. So the GT4s, who have a separate session, aren't out there. It's only the GTX Cup and TC divisions that are present down there. And I think we've spoken to not quite everyone, but certainly a fair contingent of them at the moment. Worth noting, of course, that we have some competition for Daniel Teixeira in the TC Plus class. Not only is Teixeira competing, but also Michel Fernandez and Charles Valentini in the Peugeot 308 TCR, the Santos Competição entry. So that is an interesting addition. Sadly, we don't have the Kia Ceed back this time, which I would have enjoyed. Getting a look there at the Joker lane that they're using in TCR World Tour. Not something that we are using, at least if we are, no one's told me. But yes, the Joker, an interesting little addition. I see that we've resorted to popping bottles down at some of the spectator bank areas, so some drivers or some fans, I think, resorting to some drinks, and others working on getting themselves a good meal. Oh, a Gorilla's shirt. That man knows ball. I love these parasol hats that those gentlemen are wearing. Great to see everyone enjoying this event. Of course, let's face the fact, any street circuit does face some level of local scrutiny, with people saying that they don't like the disruptions, they don't like the noise, but it does seem that there's a really strong contingent of people who love and support this facility. Restart time pushed back to 1:15, it seems. So with any luck, they will get this session rolling before too long. It'd be interesting to see the current state of play down there, to see how likely 12:15 is looking. Certainly, I think the balcony in shade is of better comfort to its inhabitants than the warm grandstands, by the looks of it. Shade is a hot commodity here in Villarreal. Hopefully, we're not far away from seeing driving action. Andre Fernandez has a support club. There we go. Fernandez is certainly a interesting character. I've been around him a little bit. He is very lively. Certainly the good time spirit of the garage. And drives around in a absolutely massive Ford pickup. I think, is it an F350 or an F250? I think it's an F350 that he has. And parked alongside a race hauler, a HGV, it really doesn't look too much smaller. It does, however, look absolutely massive compared to everything else around it, unsurprisingly. But yes, a sensational character. I wonder if the F350 was put aside for this weekend, given the streets of Villarreal are maybe a little bit narrow, but there again, I've seen him drive the car around Cascais, around Estoril, so yeah, maybe not. Awesome thing, and a lovely chap, and great to have him on the grid for the first time this year. So in theory, we should be just a couple of moments away here from the resumption of this session, and when the session does resume, I think we're in for a bit of a scramble from everybody to get lap times on the board. Now, in terms of the Portuguese championships in the GTC and TC division, in the GTC standings, the Bennett and Fothergill crew, the Brits, they have the highest point score, but they're not here this weekend, so they will lose their championship lead. Maximo Varela and Gabriel Cathoilo on course to inherit that lead this weekend. Still anticipating provisionally a resumption in the next few moments. I've not seen... now there is a good sign. The cars are lined up. And we are going to get the restart at 12:15. Fabulous. Okay. So Q1 for the GTC and TC division bursts back into life here in just a few moments. And take a listen to the welcome sound of racing engines as this session kicks back in. Here we go, green flag has waved, cars onto the circuit. So the cars are rolling, and what now begins is a rush, I think, to get representative lap times in on the board. Gabriel Cathoilo in the Chevrolet Sport by Petrogold-Ligier has the fastest time, a 2:10.150, but I really don't think that's representative. I think there's some more time to be found, and they're not really dealing with an abundance of time in which to find it. 8 minutes of the session remain. The lap runs over 2 minutes. It's going to be a very small window that these drivers have to find the optimum. Teixeira, of course, at least within the TC divisions, and indeed this GTC and TC session, one can expect him to have the high ground, as it were. He's normally one of the quicker drivers in general, and certainly in this division. Of course, the GT4s and the GTs and TCs will intermingle here in the Portuguese Championship standalone event in this Iberian Supercars paddock. So we are going to get to see that comparison unfold. I do think Teixeira is the favourite to be at the front of both of these sessions. Of course, from qualifying one here for GT and TC, we will immediately go into Q2 for the second drivers in these cars. And then we'll welcome the GT4 competitors for the same process, Q1 and Q2. We follow the Chevrolet Sport by Petrogold-Ligier. The number 133 car. That's the only Chevrolet Sport Ligier here this weekend. There's another Ligier on the grid, and that's the Veloso Caravata Ferreira that we saw in the pits. Now we're on a flying lap then for some, although looking at Teixeira, he's still trying to get some heat into the tyres. Again, you see just how quick some of these sections are, these fast-flowing corners. This section in particular really is reminiscent of the Guia circuit in Macau. You can see just how narrow it is, but then it opens up massively on the run back downhill towards the start-finish line, as we see here. Will Hunt powering down the hill now. Much wider section of circuit. Cars power down. You see these chicanes that they have to take on, but some serious speeds achieved. You can see the commitment there from Will Hunt. Will Hunt could be a favourite in this session, incidentally. Graphics say that it's Baker at the wheel, but I believe this is Will Hunt. Yes, it is. That's now been corrected. There's Charles Valentini. We are seeing some faster lap times come in, a 2:06.883 from Casoilo. That's the new benchmark then. Will Hunt just set a 2:10.5. There's certainly more to come from him. Here comes Valentini across the line and down in the 2:20s for the time being. Can't hang around here. 4 minutes, less than 4 minutes of the session remaining. It certainly doesn't look like Teixeira is hanging around. That looked like a fast drive. Well, he's on an outlap, according to timing. I think he's been back in the pits for some reason. Oh, Gabriel Casoilo was pushing on to try and find yet more time there, and ended up having to peel off around the chicane. So he's backed out of that lap, understandably. If he had continued on, it would have only been invalidated anyway with the cut across the chicane. Those chicanes real pinch points when we go into wheel-to-wheel racing. I expect them to be tricky sections to navigate. There's Andre Fernandez. Good to see that he is out there. Was worried that he had a technical issue. But he continues on and just set a personal best second sector. And look at this lap time coming in from Teixeira. 4 seconds purple at the middle split, and you can see the level of commitment as he turns through the final chicane. And that is a mega time, a 2:01.736. That would be competitive in the world TCR grid. That was a mega lap from Teixeira. Commitment from the Portuguese competitor. I don't know that he's going to need more than that, and indeed he's backed out with 90 seconds left on the clock. I think that's an in-lap for him. He feels he's done enough. Now, I'm of the opinion that no one's going to improve on that, but can anybody get close? Who is going to win among the GTC competitors their class pole position? For now, it's Cathoilo with his 2:06.8. Andre Fernandez just improved to a 2:08.8. He's third fastest. Will Hunt is yet to go under a 2:10 in the McLaren 570S GT4. There it is, just ahead of Teixeira. Hunt appears to be on a slow lap as well. He's seemingly backed out. Are there any more fast laps incoming? Will Hunt is running out of time. I'm not convinced he's going to get another flying lap. Will there be any late charges forward, I wonder? Teixeira heads into the pit lane. The session has come to a close. Will we see any more improvements? Gabriel Cathoilo has just gone quicker again, a 2:05.893. Fernandez coming to the line. Is he going to go quicker? He's currently the fastest among the Cup class drivers. No, only a 2:10.1 for him. I think he got tripped up somewhat by the Peugeot of Charles Valentini. Vitor Costa, currently 8th fastest. Can he improve? Yes, he goes 6th fastest, a 2:16.505 for him. But it looks like just about all of the competitive lap times have been set here. Maybe Federico Formiga, the Art of Speed Seat Leon Super Copa, out on circuit this weekend. Will we see an improvement there? Looks like a solid lap time coming in. 8th fastest at the moment. Not convinced we'd get any better than that. Formiga comes across the line, a 2:17.9 1:054. So they're going to get Q2 started ASAP. It's currently 12:26, and apparently at 12:30 we're green with Q2. Some cars are still circulating, as we can see. A majority of cars are still circulating. But Q2 is set to begin. There's Andre Fernandez redlining the engine in front of the fans. This is what I mean about Andre. He's a showman, consummate showman and entertainer, and quite a guy. Really fun conversation that he brings to the table. And it is great to see him back out in his Porsche 997 Cup car. I can imagine that that's a lot of fun to drive around this circuit. Again, you hear him redlining it where he knows there's spectators. Most drivers would be worried about doing that. Engines have finite life, you know. But Andre Fernandez isn't like most people. Well, with that, the session has come to an end. Cars working their way back into the pits. It's 12:28. There are still a couple of cars making their way back around. Q2 is going to begin at 12:30, so this will not take too long. There will then be a slight pause while we wait for the drivers to emerge for the GT4 sessions, but we're going to get this GTC and TC Division Q2 started very quickly. Indeed, in just a few seconds we will be rolling again, so no long wait here for Q2. So driver 1 out, driver 2 in for all parties. We'll now see our second drivers, where applicable of course. Some like Daniel Teixeira running solo. Teixeira certainly himself as the hot favourite to top the session. What can Angel Santos do in the 133 car? That was the fastest car among the GTC entries in the previous session, and I'm sure they'll be looking to do the same again. Q2 is now green. We're back underway. Cars on track here at Villarreal.
Gabriel, foi uma excelente volta e pole position aqui na tua qualificação.
Sim, foi uma volta muito boa. Tive sempre a puxar os limites do carro, tendo sempre em atenção o azeite que estava na pista, o óleo. Mas estou muito satisfeito com a minha aprendizagem aqui na pista. Estou muito satisfeito com o trabalho da equipa, por um carro espetacular. Penso que ainda dava para melhorar, porque tive ali uns momentos de cortar a respiração, mas sim, estou satisfeito.
Muito bem, parabéns. E de volta ao estúdio.
There we go. The cars rolling again then. There's Teixeira, who will be the leading force here in the session, quite obviously, based on what we've seen so far. Short and sharp, these sessions, just 15 minutes in length, and hopefully for the drivers' sake they get the full 15 minutes here to press on. We're yet to see Andre Fernandez come back out onto the circuit, but everybody else is running. Of course, Pedro Alves' Speedy Motorsport Porsche, the Club Sport Cayman, is unfortunately not in the session. We saw how heavy that damage was, and again, that looked like a weekend ender, unfortunately, for that chassis, unless miraculously they've managed to avoid any damage to the front of those chassis rails, but we'll see. Certainly a big recovery job, a big repair job, and one that might exceed the window of time that we have before the races this evening. We're set to race at 6 p.m. with the amount of delays we've got. No, probably not. But even if the race starts later, one would suspect that they will struggle to get the car out there for race 1, but hopefully they can do so. Certainly the Speedy Motorsport team well equipped to try and make a prompt repair, a speedy repair if you will. Sorry, had to. Oh, and we've had a drama for the number 35, Jose Maria Moreiros, Veloso Motorsport Ligier. Now that looks like not a puncture, but a tyre gone. Now, did that car head out onto the circuit with a loose wheel or something? Because that looks like the tyre has exited completely from the conversation. Oh, it's still there. It's a suspension failure, isn't it? Yeah, the tyre was still there, but the suspension has collapsed in no uncertain terms. That must have been a terrifying moment. And with it, of course, will come a red flag. Now, it shouldn't be a long red flag. It should be as simple as car on flatbed, session resume, but another delay to proceedings here. Fawcett in the Art of Speed Porsche 911 Cup car. That's of course a 991.1. Teixeira making his way down. Red flags back out. And again, these crews here around the circuit are well-oiled machines. So I don't think this will be the longest delay. It's a fairly standard pick up the car and get it out of harm's way situation. Just getting some unique reporting from Jose Antonio Marquez. Apparently, every practice, qualifying, or race that has happened so far this weekend has featured either a safety car or a red flag. And that's apparently not normal, even for Villarreal. That's excessive incident and accident. This place always has a flair for the dramatic, let's say, but yes, it does seem excessively so this time around, doesn't it? Of course, we've seen Teixeira out there. We've alluded to the fact that TCR World Tour are here, and we've seen those cars in their garages. Daniel Teixeira is also racing in TCR World Tour, so he's a busy driver this weekend, and a driver that I imagine will feel like he needs to be a little bit careful, given that car is in use for both categories. There is Teixeira in his Hyundai Elantra. Be the busiest driver in the paddock this weekend between the two different categories, taking on the creme de la creme of the de facto world stage of TCR. And certainly his local knowledge will come in handy. Not the only Portuguese driver on that grid, because Manuel Fernandes is also entered. But Teixeira, I think, has done a fair few more laps around here. And certainly this weekend, he's getting a double dose. There, unfortunately, is Jose Maria Moreiros making his way to the rescue vehicle. The Sangyong pickup, eh? Used to be a one-make series for those cars in the UK, of course. Some of you may remember that short-lived venture. And efficient work from our recovery crew. This car will now be ushered clear of the scene, and we should be back underway very shortly with green flag action. Indeed, there we go. Restart at 12:42, so they're not going to hang around at all. Cars make their way to the end of the pit lane. Green flag flies. Yeah. As the green flag does fly, is the suspension damage on that Ligier. Hopefully they've got the components to get that car back out, but doesn't look promising, does it? Oh goodness, the barriers there getting moved by the forces of the cars driving by there. We saw it drifting. It's now rather narrowed the pit lane. Exit. Again, the combined forces, the GTC and TC division out there on the circuit, and I do love this about Iberian supercars, especially in the GTC and TC considerations. Again, they're racing with the GT4s this time, so we're going to have even more variety. We're going to have the modern day GT4s, some of the older GT4s like this McLaren. And then you've got the touring cars, you've got the Porsche Cup machinery. It's going to be a very mixed grid. In previous years, we've had even more variety than that. I think several years ago, there were some Skoda Octavias racing in Iberian supercars for this weekend. So no one had a representative time at the point of the red flag. So much like the previous session, we now have a short, sharp arms race to try and get a representative time on the board. Saw in that previous session, Teixeira will be again aiming for a mid 201. The rest of the field will be hoping to break the 205 barrier. Again, remember, Teixeira will be having to go head-to-head for overall positions with the GT4s in the race, and that could be really compelling. There is the 133, Angel Santos at the wheel of the Chefo Sport by Petrogold Ligier, the only Ligier left running in the session after Jose Maria Moreros' issue just here. That being the turn 9, turn 10 S-bend sequence before this corner here, turn 14, known as Ciprest. And then down this, the Matthias Straight. The Matthias Straight picking up some serious speed. And then taking in the sweepers of turn 15 and 16. For the chicane that slightly eases things up ahead of the next bend, turn 17, Araucaria. And then it's that run towards the last couple of chicanes. You've got that, of course, roundabout that comprises turns 22 through 24, which we approach now. You then cross the line as you turn into the second chicane to start a new lap. And what kind of time was that from Angel Santos? It was a 2:12.1. We know the car's capable of a lot more. 5.5 minutes with which to do it. Teixeira is on a flyer. He's just set comfortably the fastest first sector of the session at 39.2. So he's, I think, again looking to set his fast lap and then pull in. He's purple sector 1. Will he be purple sector 2? One suspects he might. Does indeed look like it's going to be a quick lap here from Teixeira. He's in the final sector now. I don't think he's far away from breaking the timing beam as we watch Angel Santos continue on his way. Andre Fernandez has just set the fastest lap at 2:11.394, but he's very promptly dispatched by a flying Daniel Teixeira. 2:01.696 the lap time from him. Great going. Here's Andre Fernandez at the wheel of his Porsche Cup car. Great to hear that sonorous flat 6. 997 Cup, a very elegant machine. If I were to be lucky enough to want to go Porsche Cup car buying, I would end up with a 996 or an early 997, such as this one. Teixeira appears to be going even quicker still. Fernandez is on a pretty solid lap, but I don't think it's going to be enough. Now Teixeira's last lap time has been deleted. I think maybe he had a bit of a drama somewhere. Fernandez then remains top of the session for now. And a 2:06.607, a nice improvement there from Fernandez. Indeed, I think Teixeira's last lap was deleted, so he presses on. Caught a glimpse there of Federico Formiga in the Art of Speed Seat Leon Supercopa car, circa around 2008. Of course, developed from the knowledge from Sunred Engineering and their incredible factory Seat S2000 program. Teixeira with a 2:05.0 last time through. I think he probably got a radio message about halfway through the circuit saying, Daniel, that 2:01.6 has been deleted. We need you to go again. Well, we see another quick lap here. Distinctive wastegate sound as he lifts off the throttle. Less than 90 seconds of the session remains. This isn't a brilliant first sector. It's the quickest anyone has done, but not as quick as we've seen him go previously. Is he perhaps just making sure he does enough to go top without doing the full potential of the car in this lap? As we know from previous events, in terms of the TC and GTC division, Teixeira comfortably the driver to beat. Oh, goodness me, that was some rear locking there. Of course, running rearward bias on the car to get it rotated for corners, but that won't have been comfortable. Well, even at what looked like a bit of a canter, a 2:04.7. That will serve him more than nicely. Teixeira goes top. Can anyone match him? Fernandez has had a solid first sector, only half a second off the first sector from Teixeira, which again, relatively speaking, with Teixeira's notable pace advantage, not bad going from Fernandez. He could well end up the fastest of the GTXs, or sorry, the fastest of the GTC division runners. Of course, GTC, as we've told you in the past, split between two subclasses of Cup and GTX. Fernandez in a Porsche 997 Cup car is, of course, a Cup entry. Angel Santos is the next closest driver with a 2:12.1, and I don't think he's going to get close. He's possibly going to go sub 2:10 on this time. It looks like he's improving. Fernandez has some traffic up ahead. Is that going to compromise his lap time? He's lost a little in the middle sector. McLaren and the Peugeot up ahead for Fernandez. He'll be hoping they make their way through the final chicane quickly. They do a decent job. Fernandez comes across the line and the time is a 2:06.607 still as his fastest time, because that was a 2:07.1, so did not improve ultimately on the final lap. It seems just about nobody did. Teixeira then will be top on a 2:04.719. That will put him at the front of the GTC TC divisions. Andre Fernandez, second fastest and first among the GTCs with a 2:06.607. Angel Santos, a 2:11.912. Vitor Costa, a 2:12.272. Michel Fernandez in the Peugeot 308 GTI TCR, a 2:15.833. The Seat Leon Supercopa Mark II of Federico Formiga, sixth fastest. Antonio Duarte, seventh fastest and first among the GTX AM runners in seventh. In his TRS McLaren, just ahead of his TRS teammate, Stephanie Habeker. Adam Fawcett, ninth fastest at 2:22.3. And Jose Maria Moreros, of course, not setting a time before that suspension failure. So next up, the GT4 cars head out onto the course. 12:57 is the intended start time. As we can see, previous session cars still on the circuit, and once again, Andre Fernandez, at the expense of his engine mileage life, is giving a bit of a show to the fans on the in-lap. Fabulous guy. And quite enjoyable to watch him enjoying his car and letting others enjoy it too. But perhaps not at 57 with these drivers still making their way around, but just about as soon as they head in, we will be green with the GT4s, and that's going to be where, of course, the ultimate pole position will come from. I believe they're separating the GTC and the TC division from the GT4s at the start of the race. So Teixeira, while he's set a good benchmark, it's not one the GT4s have to worry about. And we'll see those GT4s out on the track in just a moment. Indeed, the GT4s head out onto the circuit. Now, the session is not green on my screen yet. Just need to refresh my timing. They are now green. Cesar Mercado, the first out there. A nice healthy quota of GT4s on track. We appear to be missing the 38 Veloso car. Luis Caleros is yet to be registered as exiting the pits, so we're missing anyone else. Nuno Afonso for Gianfranco Motorsport also. Getting a flash there of Antonio Veloso in the 555 Veloso Motorsport entry. That's the Audi R8 LMS GT4. First time we've seen an Audi in a little while in the Iberian Supercars paddock. Great to see it. Of course, adds a V10 howl to proceedings. So just the 15 minutes for these drivers. These are the driver ones. These are the drivers that will start the first race later on this evening. And this Q1 session setting the grid for that race. Of course, race qualifying 2 will immediately follow that after the drivers have switched. And that will once again be a 15-minute session, and that will set the grid for race 2 on Sunday. In the early stages, I think it's largely going to be about people finding track space, as they've all come out in that cluster. And you can see for a lot of these drivers, they're using 2 laps of time to get their tyres up to temperature. This is the second rotation for most of these cars, and they are still weaving and trying to get some heat into the rubber. Interested to see where the front runners in this GT4 field are relative to Teixeira's mid-201s. So as a reminder, in that Q1 session, my screen's struggling a little bit here to display this properly for me. I'm just trying to look at the lap time. I think Teixeira's time from Q1 actually got deleted, but it was a mid-201. Of course, he did a 2:01.6 in Q2. So that can be our, I suppose, unofficial benchmark for these drivers in this session. Right now, Cesar Mercado's done a 2:13.5, but again, that was a lap of trying to find heat and trying to find tyre temperature. Here's Francisco Mora. He's just set a very good Sector 1, a 40.767. You can see in the body language of the car that he is right on the limit here in the early stages of this session. I say early stages, but of course, 8.5 minutes to go. We're already almost halfway through. It's short and sharp stuff around a particularly long circuit. And indeed, there's that, frankly, looming spectre of potential red flag we've seen in both of the GTC and TC sessions. You want your lap time to be done as quickly as possible to make sure that it stands. Mora on a very good lap at the moment. Francisco Mora could be the first benchmark here for everybody. This is Cesar Mercado in the number 4. Now he's going to be the first representative time. I get the feeling that Mora is going to be quicker, but Mercado's time at 2:02.0. That's very quick indeed. And I think Mora is going to be quicker still. Yes, 2:01.266. So that's critically quicker than what we saw from Teixeira as well. Not that the grid will be mixed between the divisions, to my understanding, but still interesting to see that the GT4 is fractionally quicker, and Mora has set the benchmark for everybody else, a 2:01.266. Mercado on another flying lap. Carlos Vieira has set a 2:02.9 as well. You see a lot more field spread around this circuit. It really does separate the experienced pros from the rookies and the AMs quite effectively. Mercado with a strong first sector, a 40.8, only 0.3 off of Mora. But looks like he's backed out of it there as he runs downhill. Certainly at a canter, not at full speed, so I think has probably decided that lap was not going to be an improvement. There is Francisco Mora behind him. He has also backed out of his lap as they potentially get ready to go for it again. Someone I'm interested to gauge the performance of in this session will be Luis Aguirre, who currently runs 6th in the SMC Motorsport McLaren Artura. Luis with a background as one of Portugal's top karters, but you won't have seen anything like this before in his rookie GT racing season. The Villarreal street circuit is going to be a daunting and unique challenge. Doesn't look like he's on a representative lap at the moment, but we'll be compelled to see what he achieves when he is. Oh, Carlos Vieira catching a cruising Francisco Mora there. Looks like Vieira's on a solid lap here in the early stages. He's certainly pushing. His last lap was deleted for track limits at turn 7. You can get track limits here? Okay. That was turn 7, so that's what the corner he just went through, in fact. Maybe just ran out too wide. There is kind of some I guess you could call it runoff on the exit and entry to those corners. So they are apparently policing this stuff. Interestingly. And he appears to have backed out of it. Lots of drivers just not willing to push to the edge if they know the lap is likely not an improvement. This looks quick though. Jose Carlos Perez. 2 personal bests so far. 4th fastest as it stands. Closing in on the number 3 of Ricardo Costa, just ahead of him. Now, is he going to end up with some traffic problems here before the lap ends? He's got 2 cars up ahead of him, the Porsches from Vieira and Costa. Lucky was taking quite a wide berth through there. I think he gave up on that lap ultimately. Oh no, he didn't. A 202.864. I saw him take a shallow line out of that final chicane, but I think that was actually trying to hasten his approach to the checkered flag, or to the start-finish line there. Cesar Mercado is pitted. It's currently Porsche's 1, 2, and 3. But these two, Carlos Vieira, Ricardo Costa, may yet have an answer to that. Ricardo Costa, who of course we've typically seen in Mercedes machinery with NM Racing Team, but he appears to have jumped over to have a go at this circuit in the Porsche. GT4 champion in Portugal de Velocidade last year, so good to see him competing with us here. Now, are there any improvements coming in this final stanza of the session, I wonder? It looked like Costa was on a halfway decent lap, but I think he's been delayed. We see there Carlos Vieira's backed out of his time, and I'm not convinced that Costa has completed the lap quickly. No, he ended up backing out of his lap. You can see drivers making their way back to the paddock already, or making their way back to the pit lane area to do the driver swap for the next session. Will anybody have a late stroke of brilliance here? You see Andre Nabash there in the Gianfranco Motorsport Supra. A decent first sector, but not an improvement. Don't think anyone at the sharp end of the field will be improving, and indeed everyone in the top 6 is already in the pit lane as the checkered flag goes out. See there, Veloso backing out of his lap. Will there be an improvement from Nabes here? 7th fastest at the moment. 2:06.3 is the benchmark he's set. He's not matched his pace in either of the first two sectors. Speedy Motorsport Porsche with Ricardo Costa comes across the line, only 8th fastest. It was an improvement to 2:06.363. I think the Supra ended up peeling in there. Yes, it did. Oh, a late charge potentially from Luis Calleros. He crosses the line. His time to beat 2:06.5. And that hasn't registered on my timing screen. I don't think it was an improvement. It was not. So, Francisco Mora, the benchmark setter, a 2:01.266. The fastest time in Q1. Cesar Mercado, a 2:02.062, second fastest. Both GT4 Pro entries. Jose Carlos Perez, the first Pro Bronze driver, 2:03.2 for him. Sorry, 2:02.8 for him. Carlos Vieira, fourth fastest, at 2:02.969 for Veloso Motorsport in their Cayman. Racar Motorsports Vasco Oliveira, fifth fastest, the GT4 Bronze entry. Luis Aguirre, sixth fastest only, at 2:04.033. I think he'll feel he could have done more with that. Andre Nabes, seventh fastest for Gianfranco Motorsport in his 58 car. The GT4 Bronze Division Supra. Ricardo Costa, 8th fastest, the Speedy Motorsport Supra. The Speedy Motorsport Porsche in 8th fastest. Luis Calleros, who we see there on screen, in the Veloso Porsche, 9th fastest. Sergio Azevedo in his Toyota GR Supra for Bettina Racing.
Ter pole position em Vila Real é sempre especial.
Sim, acho que foi bom, não é? Apesar do BOP ser muito complicado conduzir o carro com este BOP, acho que estamos a chegar ao limite de peso com que conseguimos guiar este carro e pronto, aqui em Vila Real, óbvio que pronto, conseguimos ficar na frente dos nossos adversários, mas acaba com este peso ser muito complicado, para os pneus também, mas está bom.
Ainda assim foi um excelente tempo. Podes explicar um bocadinho como é fazer uma volta naquele tempo aqui em Vila Real?
Sim, eu queria fazer 2:0, só que acho que com este calor foi bastante difícil. A pista também não estava tão boa quanto eu achava que queria estar, porque já ontem no final do treino o Salvador, quando faz 2:19, nós conseguiríamos fazer 2:15, ou seja, hoje achei mesmo que ia estar um passo ainda mais à frente para entrar nos 2:00. Não foi possível, mas estou satisfeito. Partir aqui na frente em Vila Real é sempre importante, não é? E mais um ponto para o campeonato, por isso estou satisfeito. E agora é esperar que, apesar desta pole, não nos deem mais volta ainda para a próxima prova.
Muito obrigado e boa sorte para o resto do fim de semana. E volta ao estúdio.
So green flag has already flown for Q2 here in the GT4 division of the Campeonato Portugal de Velocidade. This will be the final qualifying session of the day for these cars. We'll of course go racing supposedly at 6 p.m, but I think in reality we're going to be quite heavily delayed on that front. But we will be racing this evening in what is a real cultural phenomena here locally, the Villarreal Street Weekend. Music festival kind of, or at least music concerts ongoing as well. It really is a hive of activity and entertainment this weekend. So the cars rolling on their outlaps will be most likely seeing the same thing again, where the drivers build their pace up over the first couple of laps, build the temperature up over the outlap, and then the first full rotation of the layout. And then in the back half of the session, or in the middle portion of the session, we'll start to see some of the true lap times unfurl. 201.266 then, the best from that previous session, courtesy of Francisco Mora. Can anybody break the 201 barrier in this session, I wonder? Of the drivers that could, while he is new to this venue, I wouldn't mind betting that Hendrik Still could do something. Incredibly quick driver in a GT4 Porsche. Someone who's done it all and seen it twice where it comes to driving GT4 Porsches, and I wouldn't mind betting he's going to be quick. Of course, we know what drivers like Francisco Abreu can do around here. Rodrigo Almeida could be a favourite as well. Manuel João, of course, he knows this place very well. Manuel João, the Racar Motorsport driver. Number 28. Let's see who's going to come out on top of this session. Looks like everybody we're expecting out there has made their way out, although, again, the 44 Gianfranco Motorsport Supra, Alexandra Aria, not on the circuit, but everybody else is. So 12 cars from the GT4 division on course. Looking at the first sector times now that drivers are on their first quote-unquote flying lap, and frankly, it doesn't look like anyone is flying, as it were. So again, I think 2 warm-up laps being utilised by majority here. The 555 Audi to be driven this time round by Patrick Cunha. Pro element of that Pro Bronze lineup in the Audi. Minutes and 30 seconds of this session left to go then. Again, no representative times as of yet, but this will change in the next 90 seconds or so. Bruno Perez, yeah, he's pushing on, judging by how close he just got to the barrier. Indeed, a 41.9 in Sector 1. Let's see what Sector 2 offers him. Oh, a very strong Sector 2. 44.973. Bouncing across the curbs. Full commitment there from Perez. And we'll wait to see what his time is across the line. I think Perez will be the first to really set a representative lap time here. The first proper benchmark for everybody else out there. And he comes across the line at 2:03.6. Certainly beatable, as we've seen in the previous sessions, but a fast time all the same. Pedro Salvador looks to be on a pretty quick lap in the Speedy Motorsport Supra. And it was a quick lap, a 2:02.211. I think you might need a 2:01 to top the session once all is said and done, but a 2:02.211 is a solid start. Hendrik Still has set his first flying lap, a 2:03.048. Could there be more time to come there? Patrick Cunha in the Audi, a 2:02.970, goes second fastest. We follow Bruno Perez at the moment. Francisco Abreu, a 2:02.543 in the 11 Toyota Gazoo Racing Caetano Portugal entry. Hendrik Still powering down on the faster sections here at the circuit. As have we had another improvement potentially? Not yet, but I think Pedro Salvador is about to cross the line at a rate of knots. Where is Salvador in the fort? A couple of tenths purple so far on this lap, and as we look out here, oh no, Hendrik, oh no, to the 38 car, Paulo Macedo. He has found the barriers in a big way. That's the radiators busted, that's potentially some suspension damage, but moreover, it's a red flag again. And that's always the fear for these drivers, that their hot lap at any moment could be disrupted as someone else around the circuit has a drama. And again, another car with significant damage. Hopefully, didn't look like the barriers were excessively damaged. Clearly, Macedo is okay. He's still driving, but yeah, that car extremely wounded. I think potentially fixable, but again, I worry about those chassis rails at the front of the car. Oh, okay. It was the concrete barrier that he found on the inside. Oh, goodness me. And there you can see what happens when you go front first in a Porsche. Radiator cries enough instantly. But you saw the concrete barrier there get disrupted, so they're going to need to put the concrete barrier back in position here. That will take a couple of minutes, although perhaps not as long as feared. Should just be a matter of heaving it back into position once they've cleared the debris. which some of the drivers are not willing to try and drive through here. So the marshals remove the larger chunks of Porsche from the scene. There you see the lap time deletion for car 38. That's again because it caused the red flag. So lap time expunged from the record books as a result. Now, will this session be resumed? I wonder. Unfortunately, that concrete stack actually got damaged as well. You can see there where it has broken. And the marshal crews go to work, getting some soaking materials on the ground to soak up that radiator fluid that spewed from the Porsche. The reason I speculate that maybe they won't restart the session is because we've seen that 5 minutes and 56 seconds, the drivers, by the time they've done their kind of 2 size-up warm-up laps, will barely get a flying lap in. And indeed, just about everybody has done a flying lap. A representative time. The only drivers that haven't are Macedo himself and Rafael Riani. And while it would be harsh for them, with them already running to such a delay and such a time scale, I wouldn't be shocked if it's decided that this session doesn't resume, but that's purely speculative on my part. You saw there the concrete turned to dust by the impact on the end of that barrier, which they're now sweeping up. You see the crews working diligently down there on the ground as I fear this circuit is going to become more cement dust than asphalt before too long. We've seen already from previous sessions that there's a good amount of cement dust down around the circuit for other issues. We also saw there the Ligier from Veloso Motorsport being flat-bedded back home after its dramas with the suspension failure. And of course, it was a Veloso Motorsport Porsche of Paolo Maffedo that caused this issue. So, unfortunately for Veloso Motorsport, they've got some wounded cars to tend to and a ticking clock to go up against where it comes to trying to get the car repaired.
Segundos. Mas vocês é que decidem quando é que entramos no ar, ok?
The question remains whether this session
Estamos com o
will
Pedro
be
Salvador,
resumed.
o piloto que neste momento está no topo da classificação. Pedro, foi uma boa volta, estás no topo, mas ainda falta um bocadinho de qualificação para salvares a pole position.
Não foi uma boa volta. Essa é parte. Não foi uma boa volta, não é a volta que queria ter feito, mas foi aquilo que saiu, aquilo que foi possível. Há margem para melhorar e há margem ainda é considerável, mas pronto, porreiro, ok, estamos na pole, mas não satisfeito com a minha performance.
Então, agora quando a sessão for retomada, consideras sair para a pista para tentar melhorar o teu tempo?
É uma possibilidade, mas penso que não se vai efetivar. No entretanto, a pista também está mais quente, houve um acidente com consequências e com óleo, houve um susto enorme agora, porque penso que será o Paulo Macedo, fez um peão nas duas de Mateus, quando cheguei eu e o Hendrick vinha atrás e ele estava atravessado na pista, portanto não foi por pouco. E entretanto alguém bateu na chicane, não sei quem foi, e a chicane estava cheia de peças e de componentes de carro e eventualmente óleo. Aliás, penso que agora temos a notícia que o treino terminou.
O treino terminou? Ok. Pronto, então parabéns pelo pole position. Obrigado. É uma boa forma de regressar.
É sempre bom regressar a Vila Real, obviamente que sim, é uma prova que me dá imenso prazer, mas acima de tudo, isto para mim funciona de uma forma muito simples, é a nossa performance, é eu conseguir fazer o melhor que posso e sei. Ontem fizemos uma ótima volta para as condições que tínhamos, agora no cronometrado não saiu como eu queria.
Muito bem, muito obrigado. Parabéns, boa sorte. E voltemos ao estúdio.
And so with that, the session has officially been declared as not resuming. So that will bring to an end the qualifying session. Now, annoyingly, already my timing screen is reset to the next session, which is free practice for the Kumo FIA TCR World Tour. But with that about to begin, I think that our broadcast will be coming to an end here imminently for the Iberian Supercars. Looks like our drone is landing as well. And with the session over, we will now bid you farewell from the Iberian Supercars. We'll be back racing this evening. I don't think it'll be 6 p.m. based on the amount of delays that we've had. But join us And keep posted on the Iberian Supercars social medias. We'll let you know roughly when to expect us going live, but I'd say somewhere around 6:45, 7 p.m. we should be able to bring you more racing action, or our first racing action of the weekend after these qualifying sessions have been completed. The GT4s, the GTCs and the TCs will all be on the grid at the same time. It's going to be a really compelling set of races for the Iberian Supercars, and we look forward to bringing you that action very shortly.